So, welcome everybody. This is now, I think, the fourth session we have hosted with Bold Bison. It's been an amazing and incredible series to help build the capacity of members across the River Network and the Urban Waters Learning Network around issues of communication. And so, without further ado, I want to welcome back the folks from Bold Bison. It has been a really exciting journey to work with this amazing team of folks around all topics of communications. And today, our leaders for the session are going to be Mitch Sloan, digital media producer there at Bold Bison. Welcome, Mitch. And Patrick Williams, who you have seen before, Director of Creative Services there at Bold Bison. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to them. Thank you, Patrick and Mitch, and welcome.
Thank you, Deanna. And good afternoon, good late morning, everyone, depending on where you're joining us from. My name is Patrick Williams, and I am Creative Director with Bold Bison. We have a very engaging workshop today to talk through. We're grounding things in your website, Monster Under the Bed. Probably, judging by how many folks are here, probably something that everyone has some challenges with in managing your organization site. Before we get started, just if you're not familiar with us, Bold Bison is a full service communications firm. We are national in reach, and we support environmental nonprofits really across the country. We can do everything from trainings like this to help your organization develop a communications and marketing strategy to, doing some project-based things like building you a website, and supporting your team kind of however you need. Please feel free to check us out more thoroughly at boldbison.com if you want to learn more about what we do. Like Deanna said, Mitch and I are going to be leading the session today, but Bold Bison is a team of 5. We also have some colleagues who help with project management, leading projects, and some creative work. Natalie, Frida, and Brandon on our team. Brandon, who's here today as well. For today's agenda, I want to just talk through. We're going to cover a lot of ground in the next 90 minutes here today. We're going to start a little bit by discussing some of the shared challenges that we all face in in running our websites. We're going to talk about some of kind of those common categories of where we run into those roadblocks. Then Mitch is going to take us through kind of the learning for today's session. We're going to talk through different, common themes, like I said, of where things are, where folks tend to have difficulty in managing their websites. And then we want to propose some solutions. We don't want to just have this be kind of a brain dump of all of your frustrations with your website, as therapeutic as that might be. We're going to talk through some different options to help you try to overcome those as we go through. Then we're going to do a discussion of content strategy, since that is a common area that people struggle with on their website and sort of a shared thing that really everyone can kind of always need some improvement on. So we'll do an exercise around that. And then we're going to walk through just some things, if you're thinking about updating your organization's website or working with, a contractor to help you with this, or you have someone who is currently helping you with that. We're just going to talk you through some things that you should know, from your end, questions to make sure you ask anytime you start a project like that. And then we'll save some time for Q&A at the end. Before we dive into it, just, some reminders. We encourage you, while we are talking about websites today, we do encourage you to try to be as offline as possible in the next 90 minutes. This is a space to think about, your communication strategy at a very big picture level. We do not want to just, dive into any nitty gritty. This is really we're trying to step away from the day to day, have this be a space where we can really think about those challenges and give ourselves the space really to dig in with things that often get pushed to the wayside because it's thorny to update your website sometimes. Definitely encourage you to take notes and ask questions as we go. Like I said, we're going to be covering a lot of ground, so feel free to pop any questions into the chat as we're going along. We'll do our best to monitor them and make sure anything, that's pertinent we'll bring up. But as we said, there's space for questions and answers throughout the presentation today. So we'll make sure to address anything. We have a few discussion questions throughout the presentation today that we'll be using. Encourage you to think about those from your perspective. Sort of as they relate to your organization, as they relate to your past experience in running websites. We very much see today as we have a perspective and we are offering information to the group, but we, know that we are not the only experts in the room. And so we encourage you to share from your own experience as to what's going on. And finally, just that reminder to, center yourself, be present, take advantage of the opportunity. Like I said, feel free to settle in. We are going to have a good time together today. For starters, I would love to know who is afraid of your website. Do a virtual show of hands. See a couple of nods from those who are on camera, a couple of folks who know how to use the raise hand function in Zoom, more than a few hands going up. All right. Yeah, super. Oh boy, lots of you. All right, great. You're in the right place for today. So our goal for today is, we call this session Monster Under the Bed, because we think it's an apt metaphor for running a website. We're probably not going to be able to diagnose every one of your specific challenges that you might, or we may not be able to solve all of them, every single challenge you might have. But what we're hoping to do today is help you diagnose those challenges and figure out what are helpful next steps. Because it's easy when there's a lot of ways you say, I'm not wild about my website, but there's a lot of reasons for that. And so we're going to try to help you unpack those reasons, understand what particular challenges you're facing and what are the appropriate solutions. Because that's sometimes navigating that is really the biggest challenge in some of these instances. And hopefully we'll be able to point you in a direction that makes it easier, not only to solve the problem, but to prevent it from happening in the future. And that's going to be what Mitch is covering in a little bit. I am blanking on the other point. Oh, sorry. The flip side of this is that we call it Monster Under the Bed because we look at it as running a website when you have the tools that you need is actually really fun. It's creative, it's satisfying to be able to go in, make changes, update content, keep it up to date, keep this moving, and keep it as a robust tool in your communications toolkit. We are all using websites differently as consumers than we have been for a long time. Those patterns are changing. We're not going to get so much into those patterns today, but just to say that, as things change, you want to be sure that your website is a robust and helpful tool that you can keep up to date easily. And so we're going to hopefully get you in a position where you're able to do that, or at least start you on that path. So as we get in there, I would love to hear from some folks in the room. A couple of questions just, to get everyone thinking about this at your own organization. You can feel free to drop these into the chat as we go, or if you'd like to come off mute, put yourself on camera and introduce yourself as you come on. I'd love to know who at your organization is responsible for managing your website. No one is sometimes an acceptable answer. That may be the case. But also, what are the challenges that you experience in maintaining your website? Ariana saying that as executive director, oh boy, lots of you. Ariana and Isabella both saying that you're executive directors and that you're both responsible for running your website yourself, which I'm sure is a top priority for the executive director. Some common challenges that we're seeing. Keeping sites up to date, obviously a major thing. The whole process of building a new and redesigning a new website, time, consolidating content. Oh boy, there's a lot here. This is great. Trying to keep up. Mitch, anything else that you're seeing in the comments here?
Capacity is always a big one. We're on lean teams, and sometimes we try to solve that with multiple people running the website, but then there's tons of content, not a unified strategy.
I'm not sure if it's Leah or Leia. I'm sorry, but as the graphic designer being responsible for rebuilding the website, because that's definitely, the same responsibilities. But yeah, been there. Inherited a beast. Lots of dead links, lots of inaccurate information and language that doesn't sound like us. It's starting from the ground up. Too many pages. Younger staff members are responsible. Yeah, definitely the youngest person in the office is automatically the IT department. I know how that feels too. Um, Searching within the site being a challenge. Yeah, okay, lots of things going on here. Any other perspectives? Anyone else want to, you know, come off mute and share your perspective or what's going on with your organization? Okay. I lost my Zoom. Sorry, give me a sec, folks. I just lost my Zoom screen. So I'm going to turn it over to Mitch because these are everything that y'all are sharing in the chat are definitely things that we see as some common challenges here. So I'll hand it over and let them take us from here.
Thank you so much. I'm going to take over the screen share if that's okay. Fab. So thank you everyone for letting us know a little bit more about your experience in the chat there. A lot of things uh, are headaches for us in land trusts and nonprofits. We have a lot of similar challenges due to the unique structures of and challenges within this sector. But I find that a lot of these challenges can be broken up into three distinct categories. Break it down into some smaller pieces to make it easier to overcome. So first is technical challenges. These are issues related to site security, domain registration, DNS records, broken code. These are things that really eat up a lot of your time that create back and forth between you, your developer, your IT support. It's never as simple as just changing one line. You want to debug, you need to make sure it's actually fixed before it goes live, and that eats up a lot of our time and capacity to manage our website. These can be annoying little things like a visual error, the image was replaced incorrectly, a broken link, or it can be something as huge as your org's email got disconnected from your domain and all of you are out of emails for the day. Next is the time and capacity to maintain a clunky CMS. So CMS stands for Content Management System. You might be familiar with this. A lot of people use Salesforce as a CMS. You may be on WordPress or something more familiar. But speaking from the experience of a freelancer, the open source bespoke coding software that we often like to use compromises flexibility over ease of use. And post-COVID, there's been a move towards headless CMS systems that allow developers to update content across not only websites, but apps and personalized ads on social media and search engine results. These are simpler, cheaper, and faster for developers, not for the folks who need to actually update and maintain this content. So, for a Marcom professional running a nonprofit site, this means going to your dev for every edit, every picture change, and not being able to get a clear layout of the content that's actually on your website. Lastly, it's just about what is actually on your website. Is the content engaging? The internet and social media pushed marketing to evolve very rapidly, but that change has only become more distinct in the last few years. Video feeds, listicles, AI summaries, all of our browsing habits have changed, and you've probably found yourself consuming content a bit differently than you used to as well. But has our digital engagement strategy kept up? Often not, because it happens really fast.
Okay.
Yeah.
So want to give you space to think about this yourself for your own organization. Um, we, just have a couple questions for you all to think about. Going to put you into breakouts just for about 5, 6 minutes to begin to think about these. Just in pairs, would love you to take a minute to share a little bit about how your organization relies on its website. And, why do you have a website in the first place? What do you use it for? What are kind of the why are folks coming to your website? All of those things. Are you using it for registrations? We want you to just take a couple minutes to think kind of in that assessment phase of, how you're using it and sort of what are the key features of your website. And Then thinking through those categories that Mitch just described, just do a quick gut check of sort of what feels like it's the challenges you're facing, and sort of it could be all of them, and share a little bit about those with one. Welcome back, everyone. I was just saying nobody wanted to come back to the main room, so clearly you're all exchanging some thoughts there. I would love to hear someone, if you're willing to be brave enough to share, what's something interesting you heard from your partner or the others in your group. Feel free, you could drop those in the chat, but I'd love if someone wants to come off mute, come on camera, and share something interesting that they heard with the rest of us. I want to apologize that you didn't get the links. I dropped those in the wrong chat, so I'm sorry. I hope you all had a helpful conversation despite our technical difficulties. So yeah, any thoughts?
I'll share. Veronica and I were talking about just the vast amount of content that we have on the website and archiving, finding effective and efficient ways to archive that when it's definitely a full-time job if you have years and years of content, when you have your other responsibilities to focus on. So just finding ways to make that happen, organized and effective.
Archiving is not even something, thanks, Ashley. Archiving is not even something that kind of crossed our mind as we were putting together today's workshop, but that's such a great point. Just the whole, the blog posts from 2014 that are still up there. And Mitch is going to talk a little bit about sort of how to think about pages and the volume of pages on your website. But yeah, definitely the challenge of sort of what do we do with all of this very old content, because some of it's still good, and how do we think about what we want to preserve and keep on the site? Thanks, Ashley. Any others? Anyone else? Something interesting you heard from your discussion?
Kind of related to archiving was just the constant updating that's required in a website. And my organization recently went through a merger, and so a lot of our titles changed, all of our emails changed, our program names changed. Luckily, we're developing an entirely new website for this new organization. And I kind of get to say goodbye to these old websites that have just been bandaged over and over and over instead of really actually having a firm refresh. But at the very end of our conversation, we talked about having more evergreen content that doesn't need to be refreshed all the time. And for me, I think the thing in my instance was even just the names of the titles of people. If I have that somewhere in the website, I really just actually don't even want to put titles because they're changing here all the time. And I'm having to update them on umpteenth pages. And so it's just being really mindful about more evergreen content and things that we don't have to constantly keep our eyes on.
Very much so. Definitely. It's sort of that less is more approach. Definitely something that we can get behind, as folks are just not spending as much time on websites anymore. It's also, to your point, exactly. It's less that you actually have to update and keep up to date. Emma, if I could follow up, how is the process of updating for you? Is it just that there's so much, or is it that there's, it's a clunky system? Can you share a little bit about that?
So, I'm in a interesting situation where I'm kind of managing our two legacy organizations, which are on different platforms. And then we are developing an entirely new website. But I can speak mostly for my legacy organization, CRS, which was on WordPress. And yeah, it was super clunky. And I think the thing that I found the most, right as we were ending, I was saying, I wish there was a control F where I could find where this piece of information is across our entire website and update it in one place, and it updates everywhere instead of me finding a page I didn't know existed. And I have no idea how I even found it, and then having to update that. It was definitely mostly the back end stuff, even more than the content. It was the platform itself.
Yep. very much understand how that is. And one of the it's not a perfect solution for it, but if you're also in the situation of a large website that has information that you need to update in several places, another way to look at it is the analytics on the site if you have them, and just seeing do these pages actually get traffic? If you're discovering them for the first time, is anyone else discovering them for the first time? And if it really had nothing there, you probably could even take down the page while you're there rather than just updating it because it's just things you have to maintain. So it's just, it's not a perfect solution because it doesn't solve for all the challenges, but it's just a little bit of that gut check to see, am I spending in time? Because as Carly mentioned in the chat too, it's not uncommon that you go into your old website system and you lose half a day, you lose a full day, and even then you're usually so frustrated by the end that you're willing to be done with it, even if it's not exactly what you're wanting to achieve.
If I could uplift one comment from the chat as well from Anna Maria about triage, what's the most important? I think Patrick just hit on a really good point is it's different for everyone. It's how your users are using your website. So for instance, if you are a land trust that's very much focusing on lobbying and activism and organization, is there a way that people can easily sign up to see when your next town hall is? Is there a button that's sort of a one-click letter to your representatives? Or if you have a very native plant homesteady type of audience, can they very easily see what native plants are available to grow in their area? Is there a link to the local county rules about planting in your own garden? It really depends on who your users are and what they're trying to do. But getting to know your audience is, core to all marketing strategies. So it takes a little bit of time, but it is foundational to everything else you'll do. Fab. So I hope that that was a good opportunity to not only vent some things out about things that we all experience in web management, but also, like Patrick said, start to diagnose and break down a bigger problem into more manageable chunks. I think it's important to think about how we got here before we can address the solution. So let's look at this old school style of web development. This process, especially I saw contractors, IT vendors come up frequently in chat. We're all likely familiar with this system. We have a contractor, they build the site in their own system or code or whatever they built that is technical knowledge dependent. Every time you need an edit, switch a picture, add an event, you're having a conversation at the very least or getting invoiced at the most. Then our contractor retires or is no longer offering support, and your site is basically bricked and you're unable to make updates, or worst case scenario, it's left vulnerable to hacking and people trying to take over your domain registration, X, Y, and Z. So this new way to work is the one system to rule them all. We like to simplify this approach in a all-in-one CMS that combines web hosting, site editor, and domain registration all into one. So you log into one thing and it's all there for you to manage yourself. The updates on these platforms can be automated, so this keeps your site secure and prevents widgets from breaking. This is also important for the amount of mobile users who, for instance, most mobile users are using an iPhone and are using Safari or Chrome. Those are updating quite often, more often than you may be updating your desktop operating system. So we want to make sure things are staying responsive and showing up the way that we would like to see them on all those different platforms. When you have to edit something, it's pre-formatted in a way you're familiar with, a point and click type system like your MailChimp, Constant Contact, or Canva. And there's also templates available. So instead of having to create bespoke code for every pixel being in the right place, things are more drag and drop, easier for the layperson to get their hands dirty in. And when you need to troubleshoot, it's very easy to do the Google and find answers, find a YouTube video, a forum, a Reddit thread, or in the case of WordPress specifically, business plans come with 24-hour live chat support or phone support. So you are never in a situation where you have to be the subject matter expert on a piece of software to get what you need done. So to show how this actually looks on the back end, I wanted to show the site editor for one of our websites. So here's your WordPress dashboard. You go to the full site editor, which is the editing platform that allows for this point and click, drag and drop. What you see is what you get. So from the home page, you can see that you click into the box, you can start editing text, you can highlight text, copy paste, Control X, Control V, just like you would a Word document. And each component is already formatting to move things around and keep things within the boundaries. To replace an image, you just hit replace and pick the new image from your library. You can replace images that are alone or in their own components, and it's all pulling from images that you've uploaded. Super duper easy. And buttons and links are just as easy to change as well. I know that those change a lot, especially during donor season. We want to have different calls to actions placed on our homepage. It's very, very easy and it's very hard to mess up. So this resolves the main three categories that we discussed earlier to a general extent. So to resolve these technical challenges, we've now externalized the risk, right? So we used to think it best practice to host donations, subscriptions, and e-commerce all on our website. We thought that users would take it as a security risk to be led off-site to do something like giving an email or taking a payment. But nowadays, users really expect to be routed through third parties like Stripe and Eventbrite to donate, to register for things. These platforms have that consumer confidence because they're fully dedicated to processing that information. They already understand the coding, the cybersecurity, X, Y, and Z. So that is not a risk that you have to take personally on your own website. This is the strength of that toolkit, is allowing those who are experts in the software that you need to manage that while you do, like Patrick said, the fun things, which is the images, the text, the actual content of your site. The next headache that we're hoping to resolve here is capacity. So, to continue this idea of capacity building, these platforms are built on the idea that you're streamlining your web management with a variety of features built in to support that goal. So, as we've already discussed, nonprofits are often working on lean teams. We don't always have a full-time staffer managing the website. So, what can we do to put things on autopilot? The no code templates and the automatic updates are huge, but one of our favorite aspects of all-in-one CMS management are the different fail safes for if you accidentally mess up something on your site. WordPress specifically uses something called Jetpack that tracks all the changes that have been made to your website. So if someone comes in and makes some change, you can not only remove that change and bring it back to an earlier version history, you can fully restore your site to a backup, which keeps us from being worried about bricking and making our site crash. Content strategy is the big thing here that feeds into all other aspects of your current website and a web refresh. So this is the actual words, pictures, etc. on your site. So UX or user experience is a post-COVID term that has sprouted a litany of boot camps and certificates, but it's really just a buzzword for empathy and putting yourself in the shoes of your audience and understanding what they want to do on your website. This becomes actually a really fun exercise where you're thinking about the persona of your organization and translating that to your content strategy. I always say your website is your welcome mat. No one's sitting in dad's computer room anymore and hanging out online for 5 hours at a time. They're coming to the door. They want to see the welcome mat. What's your vibe? What's it all about? And that's where they decide where to engage further. So while we're at it, let's make sure that as many people can enjoy our content as possible by centering common accessibility practices. This often comes down to just a logical organization of information, funneling content from general to specific so users feel confident navigating your website. And it's also understanding that almost all of us use accessibility strategies in our day to day. Does anyone have dark mode on their phone? Does anyone use read only mode when you're scrolling Wikipedia at 4 a.m.? You are using accessibility you are using accessibility strategies all the time. So we want to make sure that your users can also benefit from them being available on your site. But before we can think about content strategy, we have to address the elephant in the room, which is our users have evolved. I teased this point earlier that our web habits have changed drastically, even from a few years ago, and we need to figure out where this fits in our overall marketing strategy. So let's dig deeper into this as it affects all of the aspects of our site. So, first off, everything is TikTok now, unfortunately. Functionally, this means that users are conditioned to browse content on a never-ending feed that is optimized for mobile devices. Structurally, this means that we have very little time to grab someone's attention and keep them on our website. There needs to be very little friction between someone landing on the homepage of your site and finding what they want. When someone lands at your site and leaves immediately, that's called a bounce. So consider the bounce rate and what grabs someone's attention and keeps them going through your content. While people are going through your content, they are scanning for relevant info. A lot of environmental science orgs use their sites like an archive of everything they've ever done, which can be great for looking back and reminiscing fondly of how far you've come, but what information are users actually coming for? This is a situation where your analytics are going to help you quite a bit. You may have a super popular article from 2016 that gets, a few thousand search engine hits a month. You want to keep that on your website for SEO and for visibility, but the turkey trot that you hosted in 2012, that page probably doesn't need to be on your site any longer. Users want to really quickly understand the big picture format of your website and know logically how to find what they need. So this makes the first screenful of information on your page really important to keep your visitors from bouncing on your website. So we like to think that we don't judge books by their covers, but we really do get a sense of an organization's vibe based on their website. Admittedly, I choose products and service providers based on their web presence. If you can't manage to have a readable copy on your website, you don't need to get anywhere near my brows and lashes. So, besides someone's personal take on your site, search engines deprioritize sites with high bounce rates and limited accessibility. So, we're all fighting for search engine results in the era of generative AI summaries and pay to play AdSense. So, each time someone bounces or is unable to access an accessibility feature, that digs that hole deeper for us. So, previous web strategies focused on unique visitors, meaning a new IP address hitting your website as an indicator for success. Now, the focus is on returning users, people who actually deeply engage with your content. Think about a quality over quantity approach, welcoming people back versus having new people who bounce immediately. So an easy win for a lot of these user experience questions is alternative text. So alternative text is descriptive text that conveys the meaning of an image in digital content. And I recommend spending time adding alternative text to all images on your website. I know this seems like a monumental task. I like to think of it as a creative writing exercise. Alt text gives a description of an image to those using a screen reader or read-only mode on their browsers, but it also gives you an added platform for keywords relating to your organization. So these keywords improve your search engine rankings while also increasing your chance of being cited in an AI summary. You've probably seen that recently, how Google has the summaries on the top of any search, and just like a regular citation, you would like your site to be included alongside that information if applicable. It's also a generally productive critical thinking exercise for your content strategy. Writing why an image is there, what the meaning is, and how it guides people through the content of your website helps you gauge whether that content really needs to be there at all. So I'm going to pass it back over to Patrick to facilitate our next discussion.
Sure. Before we jump into an exercise, any questions from folks on the information that Mitch covered? And yes, Ellen, we will be sharing the slides afterward for sure.
A quick question on alt text, because I'm familiar with it more from an accessibility standpoint. But you describing it as a creative writing exercise piques my interest. And to say that in the description, you're including like why it's there and its overall purpose, because I usually just simply describe what is pictured in this image and not its context. Um, is that how I should be using alt text?
I have a whole 2-hour presentation on
Oh, cool.
alternative practices that I won't get into, but the first step is to think about whether it is meaningful or decorative. So, for instance, on this slide, the bison here is just visual styling. If this was a web page, I would not add alternative text because it is not building out the meaning of what is presented. On the other hand, think about if you have a photo of an event from your organization. This would be a wonderful opportunity to uh, put in a little bit of information of the where. So now you're getting a location ranking on your keywords. Are you helping a underserved neighborhood? Is it, for instance, like an LGBTQ youth group that is coming to volunteer? You are giving greater context to the mission, the goals, and the general, I don't want to keep saying vibe, but you're giving more information as to what is going on and what one can expect at your org. And this also moves us logically through the site. So, for instance, if I'm seeing, look at our latest blog post about this LGBTQ youth org who volunteered to clean up the river, you might also be interested in seeing our summer programs for teens or whatnot. It all comes together as a logical journey to flow through your content, which all comes together and spreads out from your landing page.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Mitch, question in the chat about, can you explain what a listicle is?
Absolutely. So, if you remember in the 20 teens, BuzzFeed and HuffPost kind of sensationalized this format. A listicle is an article that is presented as a list. So, my listicle may be top 5 accessibility features that you need on your website. And there's a short block of text. It explains, I'm Mitch from Bold Bison. I'm an expert in this. This is why you should care. Number 1, alt text for everything, a short paragraph. It's formatting things as a list in bullet points for scannability, which is how most people are reading things now. And that is actually the format that generative AI summaries have taken on as well. That's how ubiquitous it kind of became.
And Cynthia, I see your question in the chat about good design and function websites. And the answer to your question is yes, we have examples. The more information we need to be able to give you those would be what is it, that you're trying to achieve on your website? Because we definitely, can point you in different directions. So yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. Our website, I'm sorry, I come back from an eye appointment, so I'm kind of coming in late, but just from a functionality, we're struggling. So all tips are appreciated.
Okay. And are you, how are you primarily using your website? Is it mostly to share information?
Education.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Well, then we'll pull together some examples while you're in the next breakout activity and hopefully share some in the chat when everyone's back.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions from folks on clarifying anything Mitch ran through? Okay. Then Mitch, you want to pull the slides back up for a sec now that everyone's had a chance to read our next discussion question. So we're going to encourage you to hop back into breakout discussions for a few minutes. And we want to, we think this is going to be a more universal conversation because content strategy is really kind of something, as I said at the top, something that we really all kind of struggle with sometimes. And so I want you to think kind of a bit of an aggressive question here. Who is your website for when you think about the content, when you think about the design, when you think about the information and sort of who you're trying to signal and reach? Who is it? Who does it signal that it's for? And then thinking about, kind of the flip side of that, who should it be for? Is it for is it the same answer? Is it not the same answer? Kind of explain that a little bit in your group. And then thinking about kind of what Mitch ran through in the presentation and the learning, sort of what are some of those steps you need to make to begin to make those changes to reach your target audiences, the folks you're trying to reach all the time. Questions on that activity? Okay, I'm actually going to share the breakout instructions this time. Got a few of you who are in groups of 2, a few of you who are in groups of 3. We'll give you about 10 minutes for this conversation and pull you back. But yeah, again, if you end up ghosted, just hop back and we'll put you in a new place. Have a good time. Welcome back, everyone. Welcome back, everyone. Hope you had a good conversation there. And similar to last time, curious to hear something interesting that you heard from your discussion partner or partners. Something you heard that was interesting, reflection you had about your own website, anything like that. And again, feel free to answer in the chat or feel free to come off mute and share with the group. We'd love to hear about it.
I'm kind of coming in late, like I said, because I had an appointment, so I'm starting in, but we talked about how just sometimes the basic foundation of other things that contribute and functioning to make sure you're using the right platform, how are things being purchased, who's got the volunteer versus paid hours to do it, the very basics, which you think you have attacked that over the years, and then you realize it's just this repeating vicious circle.
Absolutely. It's one of those things where it's you always want to think that you can check the box of updating the website, and the reality is it is a relationship, and it needs time and attention regularly if you want it to be productive.
One thing, and you might have too, is there a better platform for nonprofits versus paid, and what tools really do align the best with the different kinds of organizations and structure that you have?
Yeah. Mitch, you want to share some thoughts on WordPress, Squarespace, and Wix and whatnot?
Yeah, so for 99% of nonprofits, your all-in-one platforms like WordPress, Squarespace, and Wix are going to do most of what you want to do. If it can't do it inbound, there's tons of plugins and free resources. And in many cases, you can also add your own code if you so need. But that's part of like externalizing that risk and bringing in a system that has ample documentation and support. There are very unique cases, such as healthcare or a large college system, where one would recommend something like Sitecore or Drupal that's more robust and has enhanced security features for ADA compliance and HIPAA information gathering. But we at Bold Bison really love using WordPress. I love that almost any issue that I come up with has a forum from 10 years ago or a YouTube video that I can work my way through it. It's just very easy to pick up, very easy to customize. And since about a third of the internet is hosted on a WordPress site, it is getting updated and it is more responsive to these big picture changes in browsing habits and software than perhaps some other platforms are.
Also want to lift up Janet's comment from the chat. Kind of the central challenge in content strategy is thinking about what your audience is actually interested in and knowing who your audience is versus just what you think is important and relevant. I think that gets back to what Mitch was sharing earlier about user experience and empathy mapping on your organization. Definitely been in the situation, having worked for a nonprofit before whose website was more or less an internal directory for the staff that happened to be published on the internet, and we hoped other people would come to it. So yeah, definitely a common challenge.
I'll ask one more question if nobody else is. Are there certain platforms that are more user-friendly and less time intensity, since we have differences sometimes in whether people are paid or volunteer, and are more instinctively easy to use from a background learning and catch-up standpoint?
I have some thoughts on this if you're okay with me taking Patrick. Um, I would say that millennial to Gen X is probably fairly familiar with WordPress. I know that big like R1 style universities, for instance, The Ohio State University, any student can make a WordPress site with a .osu.edu account for free. For a lot of distance learning, that was actually how you submitted work. You would submit like a blog post with your write-up. So WordPress does come easily to a lot of folks. Someone who has taught digital portfolio to Gen Z learners who have interfaced mostly with touchscreens and not so much keyboards, things like Webflow and Wix are very, very simple and easy to pick up. I think that for a lot of people, Squarespace is kind of the happy medium in a very visual drag and drop platform, but still having some of the additional features and flexibility that things like WordPress offers. So again, thank you for the generative discussion. Let's think about what we can take home. We really like to think of these workshops as actionable, something that we're not just learning about, but we can actually put our hands on and make things better back at our own org. So the paramount idea here is your website needs to be working for you. It needs to not be a capacity drainer. And for it to work for you, it needs to have content that your audience actually wants to engage with. So ideally, we want a site that's working well for us on the back end and very delightful on the front end. Next, our internet habits have changed really rapidly in a short amount of time, pretty much like post-COVID, you can think about. And we need to adapt these strategies to these changes. And for a lot of us, that means thinking about mobile users and people who are looking for something to do on the weekend, who are pulling up our event calendar and popping in and out that way versus on a desktop for hours at a time. And lastly, I will always get on my soapbox that the best way to think about strategy, search engine optimization, and user experience is to implement accessibility features. You can have alternative text, have a clear user journey, and these improvements are good for your users. It's good for the reputation of your organization, and it's good for compliance. Post-COVID, we saw a lot of states implementing their own rules about website compliance since so many people were using critical services online. And if you are already centering that, you don't have a big rush to pick up and update things when and if those rules and procedures come down. So, with that,
The other
before
thing
we,
with, sorry, just the other point on accessibility, if you're not focused on your website, if your organization receives public funding, it's definitely becoming an increasing liability to not have an accessible site because there's just the concerns that you're accessing public funds, without adhering to ADA best practices. So, sorry.
no, that's a great point. Ideally, we do things out of not wanting to get tagged by the rule makers, but let's think about what we ask before rebuilding the website. A lot of us came here today, and it's kind of with the naming of the presentation. We feel very deer in the headlights. Where do we even start? It's hard to pull together the relevant folks that will help us with the red web refresh without having at least somewhat of a trail map for where we need to go. So first, we want to think about how will this website alleviate our capacity constraints? We want our website to be a boon, not a bane, but who is going to be responsible for it? Who has been responsible for it? Are there stakeholders who have big opinions on where the site should go? X, Y, and Z. So, also, what does our relationship with our developer look like post-launch? We are lucky at Bold Bison to have 2 years of ongoing support included with our web contracts. So, anything that you're not able to figure out through WordPress support, we're in good conversation and communication about the needs and if anything needs to be updated and changed. But for a lot of us, we don't want to get ghosted by our developer or IT support. Uh, Next, we're thinking about who is going to control stylistically the website after launch. Who is controlling the templates? Do we plan to have people continuing to build upon what the developer has already set out, or is it more of a copy and paste thing? This is really delegating where those updates and visual stylings will be helmed by. And last are what are the annual costs we can expect from this hosting platform? Part of why we have worked so well with WordPress in the past is whether it be your web hosting, domain registration, themes, or paid plugins, we find it very easy to submit the nonprofit tax exemption to WordPress and get the tax refunded. So they're very easy to work with in terms of purchasing from a nonprofit 501c, but a lot of things are subscription based now. You don't just buy a domain once, you don't really just pay for your hosting once. So, thinking about how those things add up to the total cost of your website before person power is important. So, I will pass things over to Patrick to talk about how Bold Bison handles these many headaches and challenges in web development.
As Mitch alluded to, we certainly hope that today's learning helped a little bit with assessing sort of where you need to go with your organization and what you need to go back to the person, if it's not you, who's currently responsible for your website, questions to ask them and sort of map out steps to improve it in 2026. But if you're really feeling stuck and you're just like, hey, I really need a lifeline here, we can help with some of that. Mitch on our team is their full-time responsibility basically to be our web developer. So not just the content expert, but also the hands doing the work. We can help organizations with we can help nonprofit organizations with pretty much any range of website support that you need, whether it's just taking a look at the website and offering an assessment and some recommendations on content and user strategy. We can make some recommendations on how things could be better organized if everything feels really disjointed and clunky, as well as also just, some thoughts on how it might be best for your organization to manage your existing website in a better way. If it's, many hands making lighter work, or it just needs to be someone's full-time responsibility to make sure it gets done. We're happy to help provide some guidance on that. We also, on the flip side, will design and build. Can you go back, please? We will also design and build a new website for you. That includes, everything from helping you organize your information ahead of time, thinking about what your website structure should look like, thinking about what content you want to have on the site, helping you with the migration process through it, just making sure things get updated, that you have all the information you want carried over from your old site versus your new one, or even sometimes when it's good to come in with a wrecking ball and start all over. And then, we'll take you through really a design process, very collaborative along the way. And then at the end, we will make sure we offer, that everyone who needs to be trained in the website is trained in it too. So really what we, hope we can put you on a new path, but if you do need some help with any of these things, please feel free to give us a call. And our information is up on screen now. Again, thank you all so much for joining us today. Appreciate you coming in and spending some time. This is our contact info. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. And then also, lastly, before I stop, someone asked earlier about some recommendations on different websites that are good, have good functionality. I just dropped those into the chat. Different categories of different sites, just because there's not one size fits all when it comes to things. So a few descriptions as to why each site works as a good definition or good example on those. Definitely download the chat if you need before getting out of here, because there have been some great points raised throughout the day.